7:14 a.m. 4 hard knocks fractured the morning. No coffee, no sun yet, just a door pulsing like a heartbeat I didn't own. I steadied my cane and parted the curtain. There they were, Nadia, Daniel, and 4 sleepy children lined up like luggage. 2 suitcases, a thicket of plastic bags, a sippy cup abandoned on my step. No car, which meant stay. My phone vibrated. Nadia on speaker. No greeting, just indictment. Your mother is locking us out. Her voice cut clean through the quiet of Maple Ridge. Daniel stared at the porch rail like it might answer for him. 3 weeks ago, a surgeon took my gallbladder and my strength with it. I'd recorded a careful voice memo asking for 1 month. No guests, no favors, just breath. Daniel texted back, "Rest easy, Mom." Then forgot what rest meant. On the porch, Nadia paced, angling her phone as if misery needed better lighting. A child tugged Daniel's sleeve. Another lay across a suitcase like a flag. This wasn't surprise. It was strategy. I turned down the volume on the doorbell camera and up on my resolve. My hand hovered over the deadbolt. 40 years of yes trembled there. "Not today," I whispered, and let the knocking belong to them. My name is Evelyn Cole, widow, retired school teacher, 64 years old, though my bones often argue otherwise. 3 weeks ago, I came home from surgery with stitches that pulled every time I breathed too deep. The doctor said recovery would take time. I believed them, and I promised myself I'd finally learn to enjoy quiet. For the first time in years, my house in Maple Ridge sounded like peace. The hum of the fridge, the kettle's sigh, and birds tapping the window each morning. It was my kind of music. I thought I'd earned it after decades of saying yes when I wanted to say, "Please, not today." Before you judge me, hear my story, and then decide if I was wrong to close that door. Would you have opened it? Comment below, because I want to know if you have done it differently. I wasn't always like this. There was a time I rushed to help, even when it left me broken. But distance doesn't begin with silence. It begins with small, unnoticed things. Missed calls, unanswered messages, promises that rot into habits. That's where it all started, long before that morning's knock. Before the day my family turned me into a stranger inside my own home.
It started with the message I recorded on my phone, my voice thin and trembling from the hospital bed. The oxygen tube hissed softly beside me as I spoke between shallow breaths. "Daniel, I'm home now. The surgery went well, but I need at least a month of real rest. No visitors, no favors, please. I just need quiet." I remember pausing halfway through because even speaking hurt. 10 minutes later, his reply arrived. Not a call, not a check-in, just a text. "Of course, Mom. Rest easy." 2 words that looked polite, but felt hollow. No, "How are you?" No, "We'll bring soup." Just formality. I stared at that message far longer than I should have. I kept waiting for the typing bubbles, the follow-up, the proof that love hadn't thinned into obligation. But nothing came. Not that day, not that week. A few days later, I sent another note, shorter this time, almost embarrassed to repeat myself. "Just a reminder, I'm still resting, so I won't be available to help this month. Hope the kids are doing well." That one didn't even get a reply. It's strange how silence can scream louder than shouting. That was the first time I realized my children didn't hear me anymore, only the things I could still do for them. The morning they showed up, the sky hadn't even decided on its color yet, just a dull stretch of gray trembling between night and dawn. 4 sharp knocks shattered it, then another, then a pause, long enough for my heartbeat to fill the silence. I didn't move at first. I thought maybe it was a delivery. But then the phone rang. Once, twice, and when I answered, her voice spilled through, loud enough to drown the quiet I'd built for weeks. "Your mother's locking us out!" Nadia's tone sliced like a blade. No hello, no are you okay, just accusation. Behind her, I could hear one of the kids whining, another coughing. I limped toward the window, leaning on my cane, and pulled the curtain back just an inch. There they were, Nadia, Daniel, and the kids. Pajamas, tangled hair, eyes puffy from sleep. 2 large suitcases sat beside the porch rail, a tower of grocery bags stacked like they were moving in, not visiting. No car, no warning. They hadn't come to me. They'd come for me. Daniel stood stiff, eyes fixed on the steps, shame written across his shoulders. But Nadia? She looked furious, hands on her hips, pacing the porch, phone camera angled just right, as if misery was another story to post. "Mom, open the door," she yelled, knocking again, louder this time. Each bang echoed through my ribs. I wanted to believe it was misunderstanding, but deep down, I knew. It wasn't. This was planned. Every step, every suitcase, every sigh meant to wear me down until I said yes again. My hands trembled as I reached for the deadbolt. 40 years of motherhood pressed down on me, whispering, "Be kind, be patient, be useful." But my body whispered something else. "Be done." So I stepped back, turned the volume off the camera, and let the knocking continue without me. Outside, Nadia's voice rose. Inside, I took the first peaceful breath I'd had in years. By afternoon, the knocking had stopped. The porch was empty except for a crushed juice box and a forgotten sock. I told myself it was over, that maybe they'd gone home, that reason had finally found its way into their hearts. But peace is a fragile thing. It doesn't last long when lies are already moving beneath it. The next evening, I was watering my ferns on the porch when Mrs. Jensen strolled by, her little terrier yapping like it owned the street. She smiled, that curious kind of smile people wear when they know something you don't. "Evelyn," she said, tugging her dog's leash, "I saw your son's house today. Looks like they've got new tenants. Young couple, nice SUV, Washington plates, beach chairs on the porch. Real summery vibe." For a second, I couldn't speak. "Beach chairs?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded cheerfully. "Moved in yesterday. Thought you already knew." I smiled back, a small automatic lie, then waited for her to walk away. When the sound of her dog's nails faded down the sidewalk, I went inside and shut the door. The truth hit like cold water. Nadia and Daniel hadn't come out of desperation. They'd come because they'd planned this. They'd rented their house, pocketed the money, and decided I'd be their free lodging, their unpaid help, their safe, silent fallback. My knees nearly gave out as I leaned against the wall. Every memory replayed in cruel detail. Every time they'd said, "just for a few days." Every emergency that was really convenience wearing a disguise. This wasn't family chaos. It was strategy. And I'd been the fool who mistook it for love. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stood there, in the dark, whispering to myself. They didn't forget my boundaries. They erased them. It wasn't the first time they had taken my kindness and turned it into furniture they could move around. But the memory that still haunts me came years earlier, during a winter I
barely survived. I had been recovering from pneumonia, the kind that steals your breath and makes every rib ache when you cough. The doctor had said, no visitors, no stress. And for once, I'd listened. I wrapped myself in blankets, kept a humidifier humming by the bed, and prayed for a few quiet nights. But quiet never lasted long with Nadia. It started with a muffled thump through the wall, then bass, music, laughter. I thought I was dreaming until I heard heels clicking across my hardwood floor. My floor! When I shuffled into the hallway, weak and sweating, I saw it, my living room glowing under cheap party lights. Strangers with drinks in hand, pizza boxes piled high on my antique table. My orchid, the one I'd nursed through every season since Frank's death, shoved into a corner, petals drooping in protest. Nadia looked up, saw me, and smiled as if I were the intruder. It's just a few friends, Mom. We'll keep it down. Her voice was airy, rehearsed. Daniel stood near the fireplace, drink in hand, eyes avoiding mine like guilt might stain him if he looked too long. I remember the cold crawling into my chest again as I whispered, "You shouldn't be here." But they were, all of them, and none of them cared. That night, after the last guest left and the house reeked of spilled wine and betrayal, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in my life. I told myself it was for safety, but deep down, I knew it was the beginning of something else, the first lock between me and the people I loved. By the next morning, my decision had hardened like winter frost. I moved slowly through the house, every step deliberate, every breath steady. The anger was gone now. What replaced it was colder, quieter, sharper. I went to the hallway drawer and pulled out the black binder. It was heavy with years of paperwork, bank records, insurance forms, the deed to my home, and at the very back, my will. I had put it together after my husband, Frank, passed away. Back then, I believed preparation was an act of love. Now, it felt like an act of survival. When I unzipped it, the sound filled the silence like thunder. Inside, my handwriting stared back at me. Neat, loyal, naive. Beneficiaries: Daniel Cole, Nadia Cole. My throat tightened. Those names used to mean pride. Now they meant entitlement. I thought of every night I'd stayed awake worrying about them, every time I'd emptied my own wallet so they could rest easy in theirs. I reached for my correction tape and pressed it down slowly over each name, a white river washing away decades of misplaced trust. Then I wrote new ones. Clara Jensen, my niece, who sent postcards, who called just to talk, who never asked for anything. Marcos Reyes, my neighbor, the one who fixed my lock without charging full price, who treated me like a person, not a resource. Finally, at the bottom of the page, I added a single line in ink. Those who disregard my boundaries will not inherit from them. No drama, no rage, just truth. When I zipped the binder shut again, it didn't sound like closure. It sounded like freedom, the sound of chains unhooking after a lifetime of being mistaken for a doormat. By the next morning, my decision had hardened like winter frost. I moved slowly through the house, every step deliberate, every breath steady. The anger was gone now. What replaced it was colder, quieter, sharper. I went to the hallway drawer and pulled out the black binder. It was heavy with years of paperwork, bank records, insurance forms, the deed to my home, and at the very back, my will. I had put it together after my husband, Frank, passed away. Back then, I believed preparation was an act of love. Now it felt like an act of survival. When I unzipped it, the sound filled the silence like thunder. Inside, my handwriting stared back at me. Neat, loyal, naive. Beneficiaries: Daniel Cole, Nadia Cole. My throat tightened. Those names used to mean pride. Now they meant entitlement. I thought of every night I'd stayed awake worrying about them, every time I'd emptied my own wallet so they could rest easy in theirs. I reached for my correction tape and pressed it down slowly over each name, a white river washing away decades of misplaced trust. Then I wrote new ones. Clara Jensen, my niece, who sent postcards, who called just to talk, who never asked for anything. Marcos Reyes, my neighbor, the one who fixed my lock without charging full price, who treated me like a person, not a resource. Finally, at the bottom of the page, I added a single line in ink. Those who disregard my boundaries will not inherit from them. No drama, no rage, just truth. When I zipped the binder shut again, it didn't sound like closure. It sounded like freedom, the sound of chains unhooking after a lifetime of being mistaken for a doormat. By noon, the quiet I'd built was gone again, shattered by the sound of Nadia's voice cutting through the neighborhood like sirens. I didn't need to open the blinds to see it. I could feel the performance unfolding outside. Her tone was high, sharp, perfectly measured for an audience. My mother's lost it. She'd changed the locks. We're out here with 4 kids. Each word was a hammer, pounding against my walls, shaping a story where I was the villain. Through the faint curtain light, I saw shadows on the porch, the kids restless, one crying, another scribbling blue chalk lines across my walkway. Daniel stood a few steps away, arms crossed, pretending not to exist. Neighbors slowed as they passed, drawn by the scent of gossip. Mrs. Jensen pretended to water her plants, but I saw her glance. Everyone did. It was exactly what Nadia wanted, an audience. She'd always known how to turn chaos into sympathy. This was no meltdown, it was marketing. I sat quietly by the window, my coffee cooling in my hands. My phone buzzed on the table, a message from Daniel. "What are you doing, Mom? This looks insane." I almost laughed. This looks insane? After years of unpaid babysitting, midnight rescues, canceled plans, and feigned emergencies, they called my silence insanity? I placed the phone face down, picked up my old notebook, and wrote on a clean page. They wanted a scene. I gave them silence. They wanted an apology. I gave them truth. Outside, Nadia's voice rose again, desperate for a reaction. But I stayed still, invisible behind the curtains. For the first time, I wasn't the one performing. I was the one watching. And finally, I liked the view. That evening, the phone rang again. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mom, what are you doing?" Daniel's voice was tight, trembling between guilt and anger. I didn't flinch. "The same thing you did for years, Daniel. Nothing." He exhaled sharply, that same defeated sigh I'd heard 100 times before. "You're embarrassing us." "No," I said softly. "You did that yourselves when you decided my house was a backup plan." There was a pause. I could hear children in the background, Nadia's muffled voice feeding him lines. "We just needed help," he said finally. "No," I whispered. "You needed a servant." Silence. Then the click of his tongue, the sound of someone running out of excuses. "You're really not going to open the door?" I looked toward it, the scratches from years of family visits, the chipped paint from every slammed exit, and smiled faintly. "I've opened that door for 40 years, Daniel. This time, I'm leaving it closed." The line went quiet, then dead. But peace doesn't always come with silence. Sometimes, it's the sound of finality. An hour later, Nadia called. No greeting, no warmth. "You said you'd cover Colin's tuition," she snapped. I said I'd help until you turned me into staff. You're punishing the kids. No, Nadia, I'm protecting myself. You should try it sometime. Her voice cracked, half rage, half disbelief. You're being spiteful. No, I said, my tone calm as a closing door. I'm being done. Then I hung up. No hesitation, no guilt. The silence afterward wasn't empty. It was cleansing. For the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting for their apology or approval. I had given enough. Now, I was giving nothing. 3 days passed. No calls, no knocks, no guilt wrapped in concern. Just the kind of silence I used to dream about. It didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. That morning, the sunlight drifted through the lace curtains, soft and golden. My coffee steamed on the table, black and strong. No sugar, exactly how I liked it when I wasn't trying to please anyone. Across the room sat the black binder, half open, like a conversation waiting to end itself. I took a slow sip, then reached for it. Inside was the final envelope, the property deed addendum, my last thread of control. I unfolded it, the paper trembling only slightly in my hands. This home is not to be transferred, loaned, or leveraged by anyone who has shown disregard for the owner's autonomy or well-being. And beneath it, in my own handwriting, I added one final line. Not legal, just honest. This home is no longer open to those who see me as service. When the lock on the drawer clicked shut, something inside me finally loosened. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was simply free. Outside, a delivery truck passed. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed. Ordinary sounds. Life moving on without chaos attached to my name. I leaned back in my chair, wrapped both hands around the warm mug, and whispered to the quiet room. Peace isn't always quiet. Sometimes it sounds like a locked door. And this time, I didn't apologize for closing it.